Hi everyone. I thought I would do this video. I've been brewing for a little while. If you've got time, or hopefully you've got one handy, grab a cup of tea and come in and sit with me while I spill the tea. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me when I sit down in the comfy chair. I hope so. So if we've not met before, hi, my name's Gemma. I am one half of the brains behind the East Anglian Folklore Centre. The other half being the absolutely incredible Beth Ann Briggs Miller. But it's just me who's going to be talking to you today, with her permission. I'm going to grab my notebook because there are particular things that I wanted to say in this video. So yeah, I hope that babbling has given you enough time to put the kettle on. And I promise that I'll finish with a story today. But I also wanted to prefix the video by saying, you know, this is not a gripe. We started this project with the view to maintaining a sense of openness and of honesty and transparency. I think that's really important. And I think it's just worth prefixing the whole video with a sense that the arts is a really hard industry to be in at the moment, especially working class projects and working class artists. We're in crisis. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I think if we're not open, if we're not honest, then we don't stand a chance, right? If we're always putting on a brave face and telling everyone it's okay, then how do people know when it's not? So yeah, this openness, I think it's worth acknowledging, also comes from the passion that we have for the project and the fact that we really truly believe that we have the power to do so much good with it, that the project has the power to do so much good as well, because it should become something, and I hope it already has in a lot of ways, that is much bigger than ourselves. So with that in mind, I think it's worth acknowledging that the project has already done a lot of good and we're so proud of it. So I've got some notes on my paper here about where we're at. So if you've not been in to see us before, the East Anglian Folklore Centre is a grassroots arts project. We have a research library, some of which you see around me here, which now holds, I think, nearly 900 books, but I'll be honest, we've lost count, but we are getting back on top of cataloguing. So I should be able to give you a definitive number at some point in the near future. But we also use it as an excuse to keep acquiring books. And there are loads of lovely people out there who have been donating as well. So the number does keep building. And we hope that it offers a really valuable and, you know, free at the point of access resource for people to come and use. The computer here is resting on a huge table in the middle of the research kind of library space, which is available for people to come and use. There's free internet in our home gallery, the Minories. So if you want to come and find us and use that, then we are upstairs. You come through the main doors of the gallery, the Minories Gallery opposite Holly Trees and the Castle Museum in Colchester, or you can come through the back gate and through a beautiful garden and past the very tempting Commons Cafe, and then still make your way up the stairs to find us. So I think that's probably enough babbling about where exactly we are, and hopefully you've managed to get your tea. We've been in our room here at the Minories since September 2024, so that's when we moved in, but we've been properly open regular hours since October 24. And by regular hours, I mean 4 days a week at least, unless something out of our control has happened. So there was a period of time where the boiler had broken at the Minories, so we did have to shut our doors for that. But thankfully, they managed to get it sorted and we were back in, and despite the looks of things, relatively cozy. I've just been sat still writing stories all day, so I've got cold hands, but not a cold heart, hopefully. In the last year, so in 2025, we sent out just over £15,000 to the artists we work with in the shop. So as well as the research centre area, we have got a little shop that holds the work of more than 50 artists now. A lot of them are from East Anglia, but I'll be honest, if it's really good, I'm getting it, whether it's from further afield or not. And we've also got a formidable collection of zines for sale, which is only building. So that's really exciting. And we've, sent out even more money to artists if we include the artists that we've worked with at our events, so musicians and other artists that we've paid to come and perform and speak. And I'm so proud of that. I think that's a phenomenal achievement for a grassroots art project that's in its kind of first proper year. So, yeah, I'm going to keep banging on about that for as long as I can. We've also worked with some really great places. So it still blows my mind. We got to work with Tate Britain back in November on their Hidden Folklores event. So that was a Late at Tate event. They're brilliant events because they're run by the Young Producers team as well. So we couldn't have been more astonished, but also more proud to have been part of that. But we've also worked with First Sight in Colchester, which is another gallery just at the back here, to deliver some holiday fun sessions, and also with Colchester Castle. And if you had told baby me that I would get to do some creative work of any kind over in Colchester Castle as an artist, or be standing on the steps of Tate Britain performing strange rituals, then I would have absolutely not believed you. So it's been an astonishing year. But I think it's also really worth noting that in that year, we filled out 13 funding applications. And we did get shortlisted. We were fortunate to get shortlisted. But we still had 13 rejections in the end. Funding is really hard. And the whole system for funding culture is really struggling, and it's so overloaded. But I'm really hoping that 2026 is going to be our year. So yeah, fingers crossed, I will keep filling out those applications. We are so grateful for all of the support that we do get. And I guess this is where the spilling the tea part comes in. To continue operating as we are, we're going to need more support. So the centre is currently open 5 days a week. That's Wednesdays through to Sundays. And just because the door is shut, it doesn't mean the work stops. So it's really worth acknowledging that. So this next bit of the video is a really honest reflection of what all of that takes. And again, I am not complaining. This has been the happiest year of my life, at least. I'm so proud of it. But it is a lot of hard work. It takes a lot. I'm going to have a sip of my tea before I start spilling more tea. But hopefully I won't spill this tea on me. Oh, again with the dad jokes. It's a really good cup of tea as well. I hope you're managing to get some good sips in while I'm just babbling away. So I am saying all of this just for clarity with Beth Ann's permission and her blessing. And before I go into it in great detail, I just really need to strongly state that Beth Ann's contribution to the project, it's not to be belittled at all. She's invaluable to this project. She's the other half of the dream. We dreamed this up together in our brains. We were working on a project called the Deepenings Project over in Mersey Island, in Cumwell Grove, which is a great country park. And we would have killed for a place like this to come and research and find inspiration and also find our fellow folklore nerds. So we dreamed this place up together. Beth Ann has an incredible host of contacts, which she's been working hard to build for years, and an enormous amount of enthusiasm. She's addictive to talk to when you're in the centre. If you've been here while she's been here, I'm sure you'll agree. But the extra context for Beth Ann's situation is that she's a single parent to 2 wonderful young boys. And she works a pretty much full-time job. And she's one half of a great podcast called Eerie Essex. And she's doing a master's in wild writing. And she helps here when she can. So with all that context, it's so clear to me, and I hope to you, how busy Beth Ann is. And at this kind of point in her life, she gives as much as she can. We also ought to give a shout at this point out to our wonderful volunteers. So we've had some great volunteers, and people really do pitch in at our events, and we love that. But operationally, we've really got 2-star volunteers at the moment. And those are lovely Lucy from Corndolly Folklore, who runs our straw club, but is also instrumental in us being open on a Wednesday. And Lizzie, who has stepped in, and they've both kind of stepped in when there have been family emergencies and there was no other way of keeping the door open as well. So they've really dived in to the deep end. Between Beth Ann and our volunteers, they've worked hundreds of hours for free. But really, what all of that means is that most of the output and operational capacity of the project that you see at the moment sits on my shoulders. Yeah, I've put thousands of hours into this place for free. So what is it that I do here? I keep the door open. I think that's the most important thing now we're here in this physical space, to keep the door open so that people can come in, can use the space, that they have access to it, is so important, and doing that regularly. There's the managing of events and the organising of those. There's all of the planning that it takes to organise the space for the whole year. There's the meetings that I have to set. There's funding applications, which are no mean feat in themselves. As a freelance artist, before I was doing this project, I would probably spend about 70% of my time filling out funding applications. And that doesn't necessarily change just because this massive project is on the boil as well. And then there's the shop operation, the curation of the shop, which is actually a full-time job pretty much in and of itself. All of the accounting and the social media, which is really important and relentless. And, you know, it's a condition of the times we find ourselves in, that we have to keep on top of that. So reasonably, all of that you see, all of the events, the zines that get released, everything, it's probably been me 90 to 95% of the time behind it. And like I said, the bit of magic that Beth Ann brings whenever she can is so integral and important, and is absolutely the reason I haven't already burnt out working on this project. And I think, you know, for clarity as well, that time, those thousands of hours that I've given, I mean, it's been volunteered. So I don't earn anything from this project at all yet, beyond the minimal shop sales that I get from my own dwindling, you know, projects and stock of work. But I don't really have time to make more work. So that's fast kind of disappearing. And the small number of workshops, talks and events that we've been paid for so far. So that actually translates, being fully honest, into about £2,000 of earnings for me for the whole year. The whole time we've been doing this, actually, versus about £20,000 of my own savings that have been invested now. And that's it. Like, I have no more savings. As a working class artist, when we started this project, I was in a unique position. I've never had money in the bank my whole life. Ooh, the lights are going out. This is how you know it's live. I'm just going to turn those back on. Wait 1 second. I'm still in my room. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Fran. Honestly, that's how you know we're live, folks. That was our beautiful Francesca, who, if you're coming into the Minories, usually it would be her on the front desk. You might find Connie, or you might find Emma or Darren. But yeah, we're so lucky to have brilliant staff, but they are efficient, and the gallery itself is now closing. So where was I? Oh, yes, absolutely, spilling the tea on what this has cost. Yeah, so as a working class artist, that's where I was. I found myself in a unique position of having gone through a divorce, and there was some money from the sale of a house, but by no means a lot of money. The most money I've ever had in my life. But like I said, I've invested pretty much all of my savings, nearly £20,000, into this project. And that's not a complaint. I think it's just important that people know that that's what it costs, partially because it's probably a lot less if you're willing to put the work in and volunteer so much time, and you're in a position to be able to do so. It probably costs a lot less than people think it's going to. Like all the events that we do sustain themselves. So where we're paying artists, it's from the fact that we're selling the tickets. So keep buying the tickets, please, but we'll talk more about that later. Yeah. So that's part of it. So all of this time, all of this money, all of these hours have been invested into making sure we keep the doors of the East Anglian Folklore Centre open. And I think the other thing I really have to have full disclosure on here is that this is not my only project. So the East Anglian Folklore Centre takes up at least 5 days' time of my time a week. At the end of last year, so November, December, there were a couple of weeks where I actually managed to pull with all of my projects an 8-day working week. And you might say there's only 7 days in a week, Gemma. How did you manage that? And I can tell you, I managed that by getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and doing accounting for the shop, or writing emails, or changing the website, or posting out orders on my holiday breaks. So I really have been tireless and relentless in working on this project, but it's not sustainable. The 3 other projects I have on the go, aside from this, I work on a Monday, so I don't get Mondays off, even though I'm working definitely Thursday through to Sundays here. And on a Monday, I go over to Ipswich and I teach the youth theatre classes for the deaf, disabled and neurodivergent young people, who are brilliant, and I love doing it. This term we're working on Animal Farm. I'm so excited. But yeah, so I teach those of an evening on a Monday. But just because those are in the evening, it doesn't mean that I don't take the Monday day to do planning. Like, pretty much that's the only day I usually have to plan for those sessions. So I'm also using holiday time to get ahead on those, but I still have to plan for the ones further down the line, and do my invoicing so that I make sure I get paid. So yeah, that's my Monday. And then on a Tuesday, that's supposed to be my day off, but 9 times out of 10, if I've got other freelance projects on the boil, or I need to have meetings and I can't justify closing the door of the Folklore Centre to have a meeting, then it gets scheduled on a Tuesday. And then on a Wednesday morning, I run off to Ipswich again. And again, this is in partnership with the New Wolsey, but it's a different project. I am the creative facilitator for the Job Centre Creative Club. So it's a 2-hour session where people can come along and use that time to be creative. This term we're working towards an exhibition, which will be an open exhibition at Ipswich Job Centre in the February half term. And I'm really excited about it because I can't wait to show off the skills of these fabulous people who, who wouldn't normally think that that space was either fun or nurturing or creative, but we're really hoping to disrupt that. And it feels nice, again, as a working class artist, to be able to share those techniques and tricks and kind of ways of making that I've had to come up with because it's hard to afford art materials, right? So that feels like a very valuable project. But again, just because it's a 2-hour workshop that gets delivered, it doesn't mean that there is no kind of meetings associated with that, planning time, getting there early to set up the space, staying behind early to make sure that we've supported everyone in the room in the right way. Because what's brilliant about that project as well is that there's a social prescribing element, which I thankfully don't have to worry about, but a brilliant colleague who I work with on it does. So just making sure that that's all enacted. And then for the past couple of months, I've been rushing back from Ipswich. So I will finish that at 12:30, run back to the car, drive from Ipswich to Colchester and try to get here for 2 p.m. so that I can open the Folklore Centre or maintain it being open for the last 2 hours of the day on a Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I'm here, usual opening hours all the way through till Sunday. So that's realistically what I'm working with in my week. And it's a lot. I'm a firm believer, though, that you have to do these things while you have the energy, or while the passion sustains. So, yeah, when we jumped in with both feet for this, we really jumped in with both feet. And again, full disclosure, across all of those projects that I'm doing outside of this, I'm still only set to earn less than £9,000 this whole year. So all of that time, all of that effort, all of that running around, all of that planning, all of that traveling to and from and making sure that I'm here, combined with what I have been earning from the shop here and the workshops that we've done, you know, I'm set to earn £11,000 in a whole year. That will be my earnings. And I can only really afford to carry on like this because I'm fortunate enough to have supportive parents that are letting me live in their spare bedroom. So thanks, Mum and Dad. Their support also allows us to keep the doors open on the Folklore Centre. So yeah, that's the full disclosure. That's the full breakdown of how not only, you know, what we're doing is achieved, but like the time, the energy that goes into it and what I personally get out of it. And I'm sure most people would agree that that's not a long-term sustainable situation, financially or energy-wise. I sometimes think, you know, I'm lucky enough to have ADHD and that relentless attention to detail, obsession with a project. It means that I can get a lot done. And it means that if it applies to my special interest, which, you know, is folklore, is storytelling, is that sense of community and holding that space for other people as well, then I will do that. But I will also do it to the point that I get sick. And if I get sick, if I burn out, none of this continues because the infrastructure is not there because the infrastructure is me. But yes, this isn't doom and gloom. Again, I state this is just honesty. So I guess that leads on to my side of the bargain. We're really lucky that the Minories have been so open to this being a glacial pop-up. And I hope that the support that they've got by us paying the rent and also by us bringing all of our folky crowd into the building has, you know, has been part of it. But it's just so lovely and I'm so delighted. But, you know, our name is not written in pen, it's printed on the map downstairs. And that means so much. And we've committed to being in this space until June, at least. So we're here at least until the summer. That's being paid for by the 20% that we've raised in our crowdfunder, so just over £3,000, and some shop takings that I've been squirreling away. So not anything that's owed to artists, just the little bit we've taken in the 30% commission. And where with some artists we've started working on a wholesale basis. Everything that the shop has earned has gone back into guaranteeing that rent for that time. So I will and am doing what I can to ensure the medium-term future of the centre. If things carry on as they have been, then the rent can be paid. So financially, the rent can be paid for the rest of the year, hopefully, as long as people keep visiting and keep supporting the shop, and that keeps happening. I will continue to apply for funding this year. Like, I'm obsessed with the idea of having a mobile library. So all of these books that we've got, we can load onto a van and bring it out to you. Like, we could rock up at your rural pub across East Anglia, maybe even further afield, and really celebrate the culture that is there locally, or the culture that was historically there, or all of the brilliant stuff that could be happening there. I think that's so exciting, but we didn't quite manage to achieve the funding for that last year, but hopefully next year. I have decided, because it isn't just about money, it is about energy, and for the foreseeable future, the energy that will be poured into the project is largely still going to be mine. So whereas for a lot of my career as an artist, I've always followed the advice I was given to diversify my income streams. The thing I'm really going to be working on this year to make sure that this project can be sustainable is consolidating that energy and all of those potential earnings under the East Anglian Folklore Centre project. So where I'm applying for projects, it will be under that bracket. But also thinking of ways that I can utilize my skills and get paid to use them in this space. Because I spend hours of my days talking with people, consulting with people, essentially. And I don't want to stop doing that, but where there are points where it can, earn the money to help me stay here and keep the door open, I think that should be utilized. So I'm 2 drinks Gemma right now. I've got my water, I've got my tea. I will continue spilling the tea by saying, like, well, what does that mean though? What does it mean? So if I'm consolidating that time, it means realistically, and that energy, that I might have to start giving up the paid work that I do outside of this project to maintain this project in a way that allows me to not burn out. So it's going to become this kind of gamble of letting go of other paid freelance work and hoping that this grows in a way that can bridge that gap in the very little that I earn as it is. So I think the root of all of that rambling is that I'm doing my best here. We're doing our best. Our volunteers do their best when they're here, and Bethan absolutely is doing her best, despite having all of this other amazing stuff that she's facilitating and being part of, and despite growing those wonderful humans that she has. So I think this next bit of the video is really focused very briefly around like what you can do, or what we might be asking of you. And if you don't ask, I guess you don't get, right? That's the whole point of this kind of transparency. So the biggest thing I think that you could do to help is donate to our crowdfunder. It's been open for 6 months already. We were asking for £15,000, which sounds like a lot, to keep us open for another year. And that figure would still be so helpful. All of the breakdowns for where that money would go are on there. It does say if we achieved the target, then we would become a CIC. And I think we couldn't avoid that really if there were, because what's also being asked for is a little wage, less than £5,000 for the whole year. But yes, a little compensation for my time and probably some of Bethan's time too that goes into the project. So if we're expecting to take payment from the project, then formalizing it is a good thing. At the moment, it's just a grassroots art project. And what that allows is for us to be agile. So if this all goes tits up, then it's easy enough to respond to that quickly and not have to go through bureaucratic kind of hurdles. But yes, if you could donate to that crowdfunder, we also have a Ko-fi account, both of which are listed on our website, then that would be so helpful. If you've donated already, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It has literally meant us being able to get past Christmas and stay in the space for this like 6 months extra that we've committed to, at least. The other thing that you can do that's, really helpful if you can afford to is support the shop online or in person. So like I said earlier, we have the work of about 50 artists now displayed in the shop. And every time you spend with us, it helps support our project, but it also helps support them, which I'm just, I couldn't be prouder of that. If that's all this project manages to achieve, then that's a big thumbs up from me. And you can buy a membership. So we have a zine membership if you want to get something in exchange for that. But there's also a basic lifetime membership, which costs £7. That entitles you get like an artist designed bookmark, a badge, and the newsletter. I find writing newsletters really difficult, and there's just not enough hours in the day at the moment to do them monthly. But I do them as regularly as I can. And there's usually a little bit of storytelling in there, updates about what we've got going on, and kind of seasonal folklore snippets that we're not sharing anywhere else. So the other thing you can do that's really helpful is support our events and buy your tickets in advance. We will be charging more money for tickets on the door if you wait until that moment. So it's more economical for you to buy them in advance. And just as a heads up, if you do want to support some of our events, here are some of the ones that we've got coming up. So we are running a Burns Night event at our local pub, the Queen Street Brew House. Historically, they have done a Burns Night event themselves, but the last couple of years, it's kind of fallen to the wayside for various reasons. Again, like it's a hard business running a pub right now. So yeah, the energy, the willingness has been there, but the energy and the capacity haven't always. So we thought we would step up and have a go. And hopefully it won't be a disaster. Hopefully it'll be a lovely time. We've got some brilliant acts planned, including Alice Delumia. We've got a drag storyteller. We've got music. We've got a little sing around, and the fabulous local folk group, the Medlars. So the tickets for that are £12 a pop, including a free dram of whiskey, non-alcoholic drams included. And you can also, if you want to extend your night and really enjoy it and get your haggis, get a pre-show dinner from the Commons Cafe here at the Minories. So that should be really exciting. We have a fundraising event coming up at Colchester Art Centre as well. So this is a fresh announcement, actually. We've already announced some great acts, like our local Clogmorris side, Annie's Mations. We have got Ollie from Stornoway doing his 365 Days of Folk project. Don't worry, he won't bang in all the 365 days worth of songs, but a really good selection, and it's a really interesting project. And a brilliant local band called Armoured Man, who have just released a dreamy new album, which it's so worth checking it out. It's beautiful. And we're also going to be running a mega podcast as part of that. So you can just come along a bit later and pay slightly less money, or you can get a slightly more expensive ticket, but be treated to an hour-long mega podcast with the likes of Norfolk Folklore Society, the Lawmen, Erie Essex, and our fine selves as well, where we'll all be sharing stories around a big table. So that's going to be loads of fun. You can find information about that on our website again. One thing that would be really helpful if you fancy getting creative yourself is booking onto our workshops. So the year's worth of workshops that we've announced, that is part of consolidating my energy and getting some kind of financial compensation to allow me to stay here in the centre and keep the doors open. So that's a really big thing you could do if you want to promote your own creativity. And those are only £10 a month. So that's something you could do. We have a straw club. So if you want to learn how to do some straw crafts and make some corn dollies, then that's still operating for the whole of the year. And it's a endangered heritage craft. So yeah, we're really proud to keep that going. And if you can't afford to spend money and you live locally, then come along to one of our research evenings. The first one's on the 15th of this month, but they're also listed online. And for that, you can just turn up after hours, so you don't have to worry about visitors to the gallery itself coming in and disturbing your research time, and just sit and read. We'll have access to the kitchen, so there's tea and coffee and biscuits, and yeah, it should just be really nice evening. And if you want to research anything in particular, let us know, because then we can pull a pile of books that will be waiting for you when you get here. And you can also just share what we're doing, whether you live locally or not. Sharing really helps. When we first launched the crowdfunder, people sharing it really did help us get donations. So yeah, just sharing what we're doing, sharing the events, letting your folk nerd friends know what we're up to, that we exist, that we're about. And we do take volunteers as well. I've already mentioned them once today, but I think it's worth just prefixing that with, there are some really easy things that people can volunteer to do. So volunteering to help pack the chairs away at the ends of our events, great, lovely, wonderful. But I think it's just worth being aware that for some of the more skilled things that we need people to do, like running the shop, then that requires training. So that requires for me to have the capacity, the energy to do that training. So that's what's taken a bit of time with that, because we want to do it properly. I don't really like the idea of throwing people in at the deep end if they haven't got any experience of how we do things. But if you do want to volunteer as a fundraiser, if you've got retail experience, if you want to help with the cataloguing, that would be so helpful. So yeah, just drop us a line if that's something that feels interesting, and if you can get to Colchester. And I think also, as a creature who likes routine, if you have regular time that you can volunteer, like, we'll take anything, but regular time is so invaluable. It's like gold dust, and it could really help us at this point. And, you know, all of that help means that we won't get to the point where I don't have the energy, or I need to make a financial decision that means that some days of the week we might have to close. We don't want to do that. We want to be here. We want to be open. And I think just the final thing I want to say before we get to storytelling is that we're not the only ones struggling. This is not, like, we're relatively new kids on the block, and relatively new kids on the block who came in with a little tiny bit, not very much at all, but some kind of funds in the bank. There are other great places out there that exist that are struggling, like Todmorden, and the Mint House in Pevensey, which needs work doing on it. So I think Please support what we're doing. Absolutely. I don't want to turn down that support. I want to attract as much of it as possible. But support your local places as well. Support your local folklore centres and small museums. Use the local interest section in your local library. It all really helps. And invest in your community spaces and projects. It's so important. In fact, probably more important now than ever. And if there's anything that you can do to give a leg up to a working class artist, do it. There's all sorts of different reasons why artists might be struggling at the moment. And, the disadvantage that is naturally there for some elements of the community is not to be understated. So, with all that said, who's ready for a story? I'm going to take another big glug of my tea. I love tea. It's just so good. And that's probably enough spilling the tea. This has been really brazen, honest, and detailed video. And it's taken a long time, even though I've been thinking about making this video for a while, to actually sit down and do it and to feel like the permission was there. And I've probably said loads of stuff wrong and babbled, and it's not necessarily been the most coherent thing, but it's honest. It's an honest assessment of where we're at. So another thing I've been trying to do for myself this year is more research and more writing myself, because I didn't get a lot of time to do that last year. And obviously that adds another thing onto the pile of labor that I need to do, but it's worth it. So I want to share with you a tale. I've been researching St. Helena, who's a local Colchester saint. And I found this tale, which I've literally just slightly adapted today. So I am going to read it, I'm afraid, but hopefully that won't spoil your enjoyment. And I'd never heard this tale before. So if you have, I'd love to hear where you heard it, and if this is the same as the version that you heard. But this is a tale called The Three Heads of the Well, and it is lightly adapted from a version that I found recorded in Benham's Ancient Legends connected with the Arms of Colchester. And he sourced that from J.O. Halliwell's Ancient Nursery Stories, which just sounds wonderful, and I'm now desperate to seek out. And it goes a little something like this. Long before Arthur and his famed Knights of the Round Table, there reigned in the eastern part of England a king who kept his court at Colchester. He was witty, strong, and valiant, by which means he subdued his enemies abroad and secured peace amongst his subjects at home. In the midst of his glory, his beloved queen died, leaving behind her an only daughter, now thankfully full grown. The princess, for her courtly carriage, curiosity, and affability, was the wonder of all who knew her. The King of Colchester, hearing of a lady of wealth, married her, and although she was unkind, selfish, and full of envy and evil nature, he did it anyway. This unpleasant widow had a daughter who was equally as ugly in her disposition, for it was all she had ever known and learned. The new queen and her daughter did everything they could to set the king against his own lovely daughter, who became so unhappy that she desired her father to grant her a small subsistence and leave to go seek her fortune. The king consented and desired his new queen to make provision for the princess. The queen gave her a canvas bag of bread and a hard cheese, which, if any cheese can be, was thought of as the worst, by means only of its simplicity and cheapness, with a bottle of beer. The amiable princess thanked her stepmother and set forth on her journey through groves and woods and valleys. At length, she saw an old man sitting at the stone mouth of a cave. "Good morrow, fair maiden," said he. "Whither away so fast?" "I am going to seek my fortune." "What hast thou in thy bag and bottle?" "Bread and cheese and good small beer. Will you please to partake of either?" "With all my heart," said the old man. After partaking of her provisions, he said, "There is a thorny hedge before you, which will appear impassable. Take this wand and strike 3 times, and say, 'Pray, hedge, let me come through,' and it will open at once. A little further on, you will find a well. Sit on the brink, and up will come 3 golden heads, which will speak. Pray, do whatever they require." It happened as the old man said. The hedge divided at her request, and no sooner had she sat down by the well than a golden head came up, singing, "Wash me and comb me and lay me down softly, and lay me down on a bank to dry, that I may look pretty when somebody comes by." The princess did as she was bid, combing the head with a silver comb and placing it on a primrose bank. Then up came a second and a third head, making the same request, with which she complied. Then she pulled out the remains of her provisions and ate her dinner. Meanwhile, the heads consulted, saying, "What shall we do for this lady who hath used us so kindly?" The first said, "I will cause such an addition to her confidence as she shall charm." Ooh, there we go. This is how you know it's being read. "I will cause such an addition to her confidence as she shall charm the most powerful prince in the world." I had lost my place. It sounds good though, doesn't it? The second said, "I will endow her with such perfume, both in body and breath, as shall exceed the sweetest flowers." The third said, "My gift shall be none of the least, for as she's a king's daughter, I will make her so fortunate that, should she choose it, she shall become queen to the greatest prince that reigns." Then, at the request of the heads, the princess let them down again and proceeded on her journey. Soon, she saw a king in the park with his nobles. She would have avoided him so as not to make a fuss, but he was so powerfully smitten with her confident bearing and perfumed breath that he commenced his courtship immediately. He gained her love by means of curiosity, kindness, adventure, and patience. Then he brought her back to his palace, caused her to be magnificently apparelled. I love that line. It's not mine. This is only a loose adaptation. Caused her to be magnificently apparelled, and on finding that she was the King of Colchester's daughter, ordered chariots to be prepared that he might pay the king a visit. Great was the King of Colchester's astonishment, and great his joy at his daughter's return, and the joy of all the court, excepting his wicked new queen and her selfish daughter, who were ready to burst with malice, and envied her happiness because she was now above them all. After a few days, the happy princess left with her husband. Then the entitled and spoiled daughter, thinking she would like to try her fortune too, obtained her wicked mother's consent. She, of course, was richly clothed for her journey and furnished with sweetmeats, sugar, almonds, all of that sort of stuff, and a large bottle of Malaga sack. She came to the old man at the cave's mouth. "Young woman," said he, "whither away so fast?" "What is it to you?" said she. "What have you in your bag and bottle?" "Good things, which you shall not be troubled with." You're getting a sense here of how rude she was, huh? "Won't you give me some? I'm starving." "Not a bit or a drop, unless it would choke you." "Evil fortune attend thee," said the old man, frowning. It's a bit of a blistering comeback, I would say. On reaching the hedge and trying to pass through, the thorns ran into her flesh, and she extracted herself with difficulty. She had had no help or warning from the old man. And looking for water to wash herself, she saw the well. She sat on the edge, and up came one of the hags singing. It must have been quite startling, to be fair. "Wash me and comb me and lay me down softly, and lay me down on a bank to dry, that I may look pretty when somebody comes by." Well, the selfish daughter did not do as she was bid. Indeed, she banged the head with her bottle, saying, "Take this for your washing." She treated the second and the third head in a like manner. Thereupon the heads consulted. "Let her be struck with an evil and relentless spluttering cough," said the first head. "Let an additional foul smell be added to her breath," said the second. "Let her marry a poor country cobbler," said the third. Well, she went on until she came to a town. It was market day, and as there had not long past been a terrible plague, all the people fled from her evil-sounding cough, excepting a poor cobbler. He had not long before mended the shoes of a poor hermit, perhaps one who lived in a cave, who, having no money, gave him a box of medicine for the cure of a bad cough and a bottle of spirit for foul breath. "Who are you?" said the cobbler. "I'm the King of Colchester's stepdaughter," said the now miserable, relentlessly coughing young woman. "If I restore you to your natural complexion and cure your face and breath, will you take me for a husband?" "With all my heart," said she, for she was so thankful for his kindness, some of the first she'd ever really been shown, and she admired his confidence. He seemed respectful, a safe pair of hands, and quite frankly, she was also fond of the way he looked, poor or no. So the cobbler applied his remedies, and she was mercifully cured in a few weeks, with the added benefit of having learned a good deal from his kind and gentle care. And so, with mutual joy and desire, they were married and set off for Colchester. But the mean and selfish queen, we're told, worried herself so much through unkind vexation, pure rage, and evil plotting on discovering that her daughter was married to a cobbler, that she brought herself to a heart attack, and so was swiftly done for, if you catch my drift. This was yet a source of sorrow for the king. Whilst he'd only initially married her for her fortune, he wasn't unkind and had made it his duty both to care for her and also to try and curb the impact of her evil ruminations. He was not sad, however, to see both daughters married, and happily so, to kind men of their choosing. He gave the cobbler £100 to take the stepdaughter to any part of the kingdom they desired. And there they lived many years, he mending shoes, while his wife assisted the housekeeping by spinning and selling the fruits of her labours. And both of them as happy as the princess and her all-powerful king. Such is the story. Or at least, that is how it is now told. So, that's the story of the three heads in the well. I have altered it slightly from the version that I found, just because times have moved along and some of the things that are said initially are very unkind. So it's nice to bring things to the present day. But I would quite happily do another video about that process if there's a demand for that. We're also going to do more videos on this channel. So we've collected things from some of the events we've done in the past, which I'm editing down and we will imminently be sharing. But also, yeah, we've got plenty of other fun stuff planned. So you won't always get these rambling, spilling the tea, overly transparent, oversharing videos. But like I said before, we've reached a point really where we have to be super transparent about it. We've tried to be all along, but we could really do with some help. And if you're not in the position to help us, or you'd rather help someone locally like Todmorden or the Mint House or the Cabinet of Folklore and Magic, there are some great projects all over the country. Storytelling festival, storytelling museum up in the kind of far north of Scotland. So yeah, support those things, support your local community, find the stories, share the stories, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon at the turning of another page. Thank you so much for being along for the ride, listening to me ramble while I'm spilling the tea. Have a great evening.